Okay, thank you. Leslie and Diana here with us, and Leslie's going to help me with the presentation as well. So we're from Barnsley Adult Skills and Community Learning Council. I'll just share my screen. Introduce you to our project. So our project was introducing and developing essential digital skills with low-level ESOL learners. So project, we focused on entry 2 ESOL learners, and the impetus for the project really was having to go online, being forced to go online as most organisations did, and finding in our entry 2 ESOL class that the learners were really struggling with that. Not just joining the online meetings, but actually being able to engage fully with their classes. They were finding it hard to, share their homework with their teacher, to be able to access resources, to be able to kind of fully engage with their learning. So the tutor who taught the entry 2 came to us and said, I've got this issue, what can we do about it? So the project really came out of that. And we focused on a cross-curricular approach between the ESOL team and the ICT team. And we developed some resources and offered a new course that we'd not offered before, focusing on essential digital skills for lower level ESOL learners. As we went through the project, as I'm sure lots of you found, it kind of evolved and things changed as we went along. Our expectations of the learners changed. We started off focusing on very basic digital terminology, so things like, can learners click? Do they know what that means? Can they scroll? And then as we went through the project, we really stretched and challenged them, and they were able to achieve loads more than that by the end. The main themes then that came out of our research, so we sort of identified 3 key themes that came out of what we did on the project. So the first one was cross-curricular collaboration. So this was a great thing that came out of it that we hadn't really known how it would work at first. So what we did is we offered the classes with 2 teachers. It was helpful having the project funding to be able to offer that. So we had the ESOL teacher and the digital skills teacher in the classroom together. When I say classroom, it was an online space. We were teaching online throughout the project. The second one was a visual glossary. So this was a resource that came out of the course that was designed through the project. And it really evolved as the project went on, and we'll look at the 3 iterations of the visual glossary a little bit later on. And the final one was developing reflective practice. And this was from the teacher's perspective, so getting the tutors to really engage in reflective practice and think about what they were doing in the classroom, but also from a learner's perspective and asking learners to reflect on their learning and how they were developing their skills. Okay, so the first of our 3 themes, as I said, was cross-curricular collaboration. So this was a quote from the ICT tutor that you can read in your own time. But I think both the tutors really found it beneficial to work together. The ICT tutor was quite an established tutor, quite experienced. And the ESOL tutor was a little bit newer to the service. So it's actually a really nice kind of coaching, mentoring relationship between the 2 of them. And they really shared ideas and shared good practice between them. This also widened out into the wider teams. So we had a sharing good practice session where lots of the tutors sort of brought their learning and what they'd been working on, and we shared that more widely. And I really think it's set up a good relationship between our 2 teams that'll go forward, after the project. So that's a great outcome of that. I'll pass on to Leslie to talk about the resource that we developed.
Thanks, Susie. One of the resources that we use in quite a lot of digital courses is a glossary, and the awarding bodies actually provide a glossary, so we don't have to recreate one. And we've got a glossary, and if Susie goes on to the next slide, you'll see the example. This glossary is to download from the awarding bodies, and it's one that we've used regularly. However, it soon became very apparent that it's not appropriate for learners of speakers of other languages. So our IT tutor thought, right, we'll go with pictures, we'll have a go at it. And Glossary 1 then became Glossary 2. So we've got some pictures, we've got some instructions, and we actually thought this would work. And it turns out it's still too text heavy. So the collaboration between the ESOL tutor and the ICT tutor, the time that they spent, they actually developed a glossary that I think if Susie goes on to the next slide, it actually made it so it kind of flipped the learning. So we kept with the pictures and then asked the learners to explain or make their own notes on what actually these pictures mean and what they do. But then it was about the key terminology. So the key words, so it's like keywords are used to identify as opposed to lots of written text. And this actually demonstrated that the learners who we thought had got low levels of digital skills had actually got a lot higher levels of digital skills. And the barrier was actually understanding of the terminology. And just by changing the glossary into more picture format, it made a big difference onto what the learners were actually working at. And then again, as Susie said, they actually exceeded our expectations because unfortunately we did prejudge a little bit because the digital skills weren't there. And it wasn't that they didn't understand, it was more because they didn't understand what was being asked of them when we were asking them to scroll up, scroll down, and they didn't understand. And as soon as we got over that barrier, that's when the learners they went on quite far. But again, flipped it on its head a little bit. We did some work, let the learners do the rest, and we all worked together on it.
Okay, and then to come to the final theme, it links into what Leslie was saying, but the reflective practice from the tutors particularly was a really great outcome of the project, and it really helped them to develop that glossary and the resources for the lessons that they were doing more generally. And the way that we encouraged this, so we were all working remotely, obviously, at this time, was we set up a reflective Padlet. Now, I'll just give you a quick glimpse of that. So this is how we did it. So we had a little bit of an intro to action research. We did a kind of talk session for the tutors on how action research works and reflective practice. And then for each of the sessions that they delivered, they then wrote a reflective text piece. They recorded themselves reflecting. And we also encouraged the learners to do the same. So at session 3 and the last session, I then went in and asked them some questions to really spark that reflection from the learners. So it was a great way to develop the research, to record the action research project, but also to develop that reflective practice and really drive the innovations forward. Oh. So just to carry on with our presentation, we're nearly at the end now.
It was great.
I'll just introduce the video. So this is the ESOL tutor talking about the impact on her learners.
To see that the learners are attending the ICT class regularly because they feel the benefits of the course impacting on their personal life or their professional aspirations.
Okay, and we've got lots of reflections like that about the impact that Elizabeth, the ESOL tutor, could see on her learners. Finally, this is one of the ESOL learners reflecting on the impact on him of the course.
Because I know, for example, to use the computer, for example, Google Drive. I never do that, and I know. For example, about Cisco WebEx meetings, to use the chat, share with my teacher or with my classmate, is useful for use many things about Cisco WebEx meeting and the Google Drive as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. Now, I don't know if we've got time for questions, but I'm sure that we can come back to them at the end if you put something in the chat. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Susie, and for keeping excellent time. So the thing is, this is really short, sharp inspo. I just put in chat to someone. That's what we're looking for, isn't it? So thank you so much, Susie. Can oh, Diana, yeah. Can everyone go to their reactions? And yeah, or you can do it in real life if you want. Yeah. Thank you very much. All right, folks. Next, we've got, I'm doing my alphabet in my head now. Next, we've got Islington. And Laurie. Laurie, would you like to? Fantastic, thank you. While Laurie's setting up, if anyone does have any questions for Susie, Leslie or Diane, then you can, of course, pop them into chat.
Lovely. Can you see me? I have my mic off.
Sorry about that, Laurie. Sorry.
Go ahead, David.
Quick run back. That's what happens if you work at home and your builder's coming in. So the other is calming. Right, see, it's live. You see, that's the advantage. Okay, so I'm going to just give a quick introduction, and then Laurie's going to kick off the project. So just to give you a quick summary of what we started off with. Originally, similar to our colleagues in Barnsley, we identified our ESOL learners were struggling to get onto digital skills and the essential digital skills, and also accessing other courses. But also, we identified it may not have been the level of the digital skills they couldn't do. It was the language being used to deliver, the language of delivery that really affected it more than the learners, because a lot of our ESOL learners have very good digital skills. The problem that we had is how do you explain that through the lesson? So we set up the program and we looked at working our ESOL and digital team curriculum together, and Laurie then is our ESOL tutor, so they were involved in the program. And we also got another one of our tutors to do the evaluation as well with the learners and with the tutors. So we sort of like tried to spread it around, and in a way with this project, although it was about the learners, it was also about how we could develop our staff and our team through different ways as well, like get them involved in action research, get them enrolled in designing resources, also getting the evaluation from the learners. So it's a bit about spreading the love, if you want to put it that way, or spreading the load, whichever way you want to call it. So basically, Laurie delivered the project. She designed the resources and got a lot of feedback from the learners. So really, I'm going to just say it's over to Laurie because she's done all that element of that work. So I'll let her carry on.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Welcome, everyone. Yes, that was project lead and our quality manager, David Coleman. Kudos. Props, David. Thank you for letting us do that and supporting us so greatly. Really appreciated. And this is a glimpse of our project. So we were doing essential digital skills, a discrete short course for entry-level learners that have that had the greatest need for digital skill support, especially highlighted by the COVID lockdown. It really came to light that these learners were struggling handing in homework, accessing the Zoom platform, etc. And very much like Barnsley, it was a work in progress. Yes, it's slightly underestimating the skills of the learners, and it was really just a case of language. So it was nice working with the digital skills IT team, and we came together to ensure from an ESOL perspective that we could ensure the learners got the language they needed in order to access the different devices they were using. Essentially, our program was from pre-entry to entry 3 learners. We broke it down into 4 sections: devices, apps, internet, and lots of questions. So we really sort of took the learners through it by giving them, let me go to a particular section, in fact. Let me show you, for example, in using apps, we broke each topic down into sub-skills: Zoom, WhatsApp, email. And for example, in Zoom, again, the sub-skills within Zoom, for example, how to pin a video. We realised as the course went on that learners were all using different devices, and we tried to use PowerPoint to its maximum to ensure there was that sort of a semiotic imparting of meaning in a visual way, so they could focus on the target language. So this was how to move your screen on a handheld device from side to side so you could find the teacher's live screen, because we've been doing a lot of working with 2 cameras whilst in Zoom. So on a device, we talk them through how to find the other participants and attendees in a Zoom meeting, how to double click on a screen to pin it, and how to unpin it to go back into the Zoom lesson. Likewise, those that were using PowerPoint, those that were using laptops, they would have a different experience insofar as they'd have to locate the thumbnail within the Zoom window. So that's an example of us just really trying to use PowerPoint in a book form almost. So we had the subtopics as well as the main topics that we could jump around in, and it became very much a learner-led experience in terms of whether they wanted to go back over a piece of work, whether we wanted to take that piece of understanding to the next level. My favourite, of course, being when we were talking about the internet, the sub-skill in that was trying to get them to understand or use the language of the difference between the net and the web. So we kept it very, very visual so that they could understand what the internet was and how it connects worldwide and via satellite, from which their device can connect to, and that connection being the meaning of being online, and that there are other computers on the internet that hold information, web pages, videos as in YouTube, pictures, chat, whether that be Twitter or something like that, where they're contacting friends, information from the news, and through that they access a website using their browser. So trying to make the whole information gathering process very visual for them, for which they usually put in www, and from their browser they then go to those secondary computers on the internet that then returns information to their device. And it was a very successful program. The barriers was really about getting the vocabulary, the target language across. But I think from everyone's experience, they're very much aware that the learners are pretty savvy. It's just a question of giving them the target vocabulary that ensures these units were then supplemented with These units were then supplemented with lots and lots of questions for every section. And they were both visually oriented as well as text-based. So if I, for example, gave you the internet questions as an example, for those with low-level language, they could make concept-checking answers based on visual information. Whereas those at the higher levels that could read, we had text-based questions from which they made a selection. What else can I tell you? This has since grown into lots of CPD for staff. The materials are being broken down so tutors can bring them into their own lessons and deliver standalone units. And yes, we've gone from a 4-week research course to a 10-week course that we've just finished, and intend to run again. I don't know if anyone am I on time, Chloe?
You're still.
Have I still got minutes? Excellent. So what I'd like to very good. I can't see the time on my screen at the same time. Okay, what I would like to share
the other thing with that. Sorry, the other thing on that.
Go ahead.
So Laurie has done all the resources. So this has been brilliant, as you can see. And the evaluation we got back from the learners was fantastic. You know, we had such good feedback from the learners saying, you know, they're now able to use the internet. They're now able to go onto their courses. They can now. And the other thing Laurie hasn't mentioned as well, they linked the other thing they did. They related it to what the learners needed, like the NHS, like the job search, like everything else that comes within that, and it could easily be related that way as well. So we then evaluated the session at the end, and we got feedback from the tutors as well. We've done reflection on that. And as Laurie has said, the reflection on that has made us be able to develop it into a 10-week program from there. And also with this, because of the work that Laurie's done, we've been able to do more CPD, and Laurie's presenting this as well to other staff. And it's, to be honest, it actually really shows in a way how to develop and how to use digital skills, and it's benefited all our learners as well. So, Laurie, back to you.
Very good. So I was just supplementing what you said, David, with some of those comments from the learners. Yeah. And here's another one.
Thank you for sharing those learner reflections there, Laurie. That's right. Yeah, I was just going to, that was definitely at the top of my mind there too. There's so much, have a little look in chat. There's so much love for those slides and for PowerPoint, which is very nice. It's nice to come to an event, and folks, I do like PowerPoint as well. So, because there's so much you can do with it. And a few folks asking for the slides as well. And I just want to point out that there are so many things that you can do on PowerPoint. And yes, you will get Laurie's slides, but this has, as someone mentioned, this has been a bit of a labour of love. And you can see the love that has gone into this. And I would recommend having a little play with PowerPoint yourself and seeing what you can do with it beyond just using it as a presentation tool. Have a little play yourself.
Hyperlinks, highly recommended.
Thank you so much, and thank you for keeping on time. Look at that, we're at 10 past. Oh, excellent. So
thank you very much. I'll stop sharing. Yeah,
thank you. Can we show a little bit of love for Laurie, please? Thank you so much.
David.
And David, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for whizzing around the house and coming back again. I know I said we were on a strict time, so thank you very much for that. All righty, let's pass on over to, which one we got? We're going for M. Yes, Manchester, Kate and Emma.
So, right then, I'm just going to double check. Can you see my Wakelet?
Yes.
Yes, you can see. Okay, super. So I haven't used PowerPoint. I've used Wakelet, but now I'm starting to think maybe I should have used PowerPoint. It looked fab. So I'm going to talk briefly about our project, which was using an app to develop essential digital skills. So this app is called the Learning Community app, and it was produced in collaboration with Maze, so Manchester Adult Education Service, and North Coders, for learners on the Talk English programme, so with a really low level of English. It was the idea that it would be a complete learning management system, so a way to communicate with the teacher, to gather evidence, and to share lesson resources all in one self-contained app. It's not actually an app, it's a website that learners can add to their phone. They can add it to the home screen so it looks and functions just like an app. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. So the learner view of it, this is on my browser. So it's a little bit different to a phone view, but it's really nicely colour coordinated. So the blue are the classrooms. So these are like a social space where they can communicate with each other. You could send a picture message, you can record a voice note, or you can send a text message in there. The green is the lessons. And then here's what it looks like on a phone. So again, you see the blue for classrooms, green for lessons, and the yellow is for the targets. So it's really clear and a simple interface. And here is what the teacher can see. So you can see the learner, and then you can dip into all these sections here. You can set them personal targets. So here's some that you could set for your class, like send a message on the chat, send a private message, send a photo. And it's really easy to add evidence on this app from within the app itself. So you can add evidence here. You can see that this is the evidence where it says, hello, everyone, that I've sent a message on the classroom chat. So there is a video here on how to add the evidence really simply by clicking on the gold star. So I'll let you look at that later. I won't share it now, but it's really nice and easy to use. And here is a Google site with lots more information about the app. So the reason why we wanted to use it in our digital skills department is because we were teaching beginner RAPA courses, and then we were teaching blended entry 3 level 1 EDSQ courses, but there was nothing in between. And so we thought it was quite a big leap for people who had just started as beginners to go on and do a blended learning course. So we wanted to create like a bridging course between the two. So we created a beginners plus course, and students attended one session in the classroom and did one session at home via the app. That was the intention anyway. And so just by using the app, we could see that they would be developing lots of those, the EDSQ standards as well. So communicating, transacting, being safe and responsible online. So all those elements of using the app itself would develop those skills. So our question was, could we use this app to support low-level English learners to develop their foundation EDS skills in a blended learning environment? And so in terms of app content, we knew what we wanted to teach the learners to prepare them for future EDSQs. We felt mainly email and video conferencing, but we didn't want to impose the curriculum from the top down. So Emma had, I think it's Emma and Chloe devised this idea of a digital literacy clock. So we had the idea of asking learners at what times of the day they would need to use digital skills. And we made this GIF based on their answers. So we just made this GIF from a Google Slides presentation where learners told us all the different times during the day they would need to use digital skills. And it was really nice to see all the different elements of their lives where they would use digital. And what we picked out from that is that actually email and video conferencing were really essential for them. So that's what we decided to put on some of our lessons here. So in my classes, typing practice was really popular. In Emma's classes, they were using Universal, Universal Credit, the journal, so that she practiced copying and pasting. So we could make it really bespoke to the learners in our classes. And so we introduced it. Sorry, my dog's in the background with the toys, so apologies if you can hear that. So we had 3 different centres during lockdown 3, and we had different responses within each of those classes. So we recorded our reflections on a shared Padlet, but I'll talk more about what happened. So we had different demographics in these classes. So whereas Emma's were all speakers of English as a first language generally, and they were all there with job search needs, I had classes with more of an ESOL profile. So we had some different experiences from that aspect. So some learners were really enthusiastic about using it, and some were less enthused. In my classes particularly, they'd come on the course to learn PC skills, and so they didn't want to practice on a phone app. And some didn't want to study at home, and then some ESOL learners found it particularly hard to get onto the app, as well as learning how to use a PC. And in terms of accessibility, sometimes parts of the app were a bit small to see on the phone. So when I realised it wasn't actually an app, it was actually a website, I thought, oh, well, they could just bookmark it on their browser bar and then they could use it. So once we did that, it made it much more accessible. They could use it on their Chromebook or their laptop. And this is what it looks like on the browser view. You can see the video later. And we had some really positive feedback, so I'm going to share from this learner.
No, it's good. It's very good. It's something I didn't think I'll be able to do it, but I managed it. So I'm very, very excited that I can use the app.
It's great. So yeah, so I think some people, and they were initially a bit anxious about it, but once we used it regularly, and I think that was the key, to use it regularly, they were really proud of themselves. So yeah, here's another bit. So you could send individual links in the private chat to tasks. So that was really good for differentiation. So yeah, so this student said it was, they really enjoyed a typing website I sent them. So what we learned by doing this was, first of all, make it meaningful. Don't just set activities for the sake of it, which is an obvious thing you would say. But I think sometimes you could get so excited by a new bit of tech that you just want to use it for yourself. But if it's not got a purpose for the learners, then it's just not, they're not going to engage with it, and it's not useful for them. So by sending those personalized links in the chat, we found that was really helpful to get learner buy-in. And we also found that using the app at a set time in the face-to-face classroom was really important. So when they first came into the classroom, get them on the app straight away, so they would come to expect it. And we agreed it needed to be an integral part of the course, not just an extra bit of tech, an extra platform that they had to learn how to use. So I've got a couple more minutes, so I'm going to skip right to the end then, basically. So this project, we did it before April, wasn't it? Yeah. And then in April, we launched some new pre-entry ESOL courses at the library venues. And the whole point of this course was to get learners using their phone so that they could do online ESOL lessons or to improve their ESOL by using websites, for example. So there were no PCs in the classroom. It was all done via smartphone. And we were doing it via the app. So we weren't using Google Classroom as well. It was all through the app. And it worked so much better because they came to expect lesson content to be delivered via the app. And the reason why we used smartphones is so that for people who don't have a device at home, they weren't excluded. And it just works so much better now that, in the previous courses, it was almost seen as a bit of a distraction to the main lesson focus, especially when they'd come to learn PC skills. But it works better as that was how we were delivering the content in the classroom. And we particularly like the different ways that people could create content on there. So for ESOL learners, they could either send a text message, they could add voice notes, or they could send a picture. So it's much easier to self-differentiate by outcome. And I think we've got 1 minute left. Anything else to say? So definitely to be used with non-accredited courses. I think for accredited courses, there are other learning platforms you could use like Google Classroom. But for generally shorter non-accredited courses, we like the fact you can do content delivery, assessment, evidence capturing, and teacher-student communication all on one platform. So we really did like that. And I think that is about time's up. So I'll stop sharing.
Spot on. Thank you very, very much, Kate. So quickly, can we show you our appreciation for Kate and Emma? There's so much I want to say about every single one, but I've got to keep to time, haven't we? So let's move on next to Newcastle. Gary, and is Carol still here? I know that she's really busy today. Yeah. Oh, there I can see Carol. Yes, Gary and Carol. Go on. Got 10 minutes to finish our fantastic session.
Right, I'm unmuted. Sorry, I'm technologically challenged. Right, you'll have to excuse me, my PC is old and playing around a little bit, so I'll try and get to where Can everybody hear me? Yes? Brilliant. And Carol will keep me straight, I hope, especially if I start misbehaving. It has been known. Right, please don't read the Padlet. The headings will come up. There'll be a few pictures, but I'm going to talk it through. And we thought nobody else is going to use the Padlet, so we'll use our Padlet because we love our Padlet because it's got nice pictures on it. So what we did was slightly different to what everybody else was doing, in that we had IT embedded into a course that was to prepare people to work in the care sector. And we didn't feel that we were doing it very well, because anybody out there who's run any of these courses knows that there is a pressure to load qualifications onto it to make some money. So what we found ourselves doing was taking an IT qualification and plonking it into the course because we knew we would make some money. And yeah, they learned some IT skills, but were they really the ones that they needed to work in the care industry? They weren't. And we went into it with certain assumptions that people working in the care industry will have low IT skills, and they will be worried about that. We had a mix of ESOL learners and first language English speakers as well. And we saw this as an opportunity to do something well. That's how we saw it. We thought, oh, we're going to get paid some money here, and we can actually stop, slow down, do it properly. Yeah. We also have this feeling that initial assessments can be guilty of being really token, in that you give them a couple of pages of A4, they tick some boxes, And then as tutors, we just teach them what we wanted to teach them in the first place. So we thought, right, what we're going to do is, now that we've kind of recognised what we think are the issues, the things we're not happy with, the assumptions that we've got, can I say that the biggest assumption that we had was that they needed digital note-taking to do the job, and they will do in the future. I misheard the person who said, I thought they said, oh, they need it already. And they said, no, that's something we really want in the future. So hopefully on this course, we've future-proofed a few people to be ahead of the rest of the people who are doing the job. So after we'd done that, we decided that what we would do was we would come up with some questions that we would ask the learners. And we spent flipping hours trying to come up with these questions. We really, it kind of felt like we just went around and around the houses trying to think of questions. So then we came up with 4. I'm not going to read them out now. So we decided that what we would do is sit down and actually talk to the learners and talk to them about, how they felt. And immediately found out that they weren't worried about using their digital skills. They were far more worried about making mistakes when they use their digital skills. So we'd been teaching loads of courses which taught them the skills, but never actually giving them the opportunity to use those skills in a real situation. So that informed what we decided to do with the learners, which was, besides giving them examples of the kind of notes that they would have to leave, we actually modelled it as an activity where they had to send notes within a time period using the technology, send it through, know that it had arrived in a real situation. And if I can manage to move myself out of the way. So this was by the time we got to 3.2. So we came up with all kinds of resources that we're happy to share. And once they'd done the activity, so in the first place, we'd actually given up proper real time to talk to learners. Then we did the activities, and then afterwards we went back to them again to get all of that bank of evidence about how they felt about doing the task. And that was the really good bit, because they were almost thankful that we'd done that, because what we'd hit on was one of the key things that they were concerned about if they did the job. At the heart, they weren't concerned about looking after people, caring for people. They felt like they could do all of those things. What they were really worried about was that they had to leave notes for other people to read, and they had to be accurate. And if they had to send them digitally, that was like the extra to it. So it kind of felt like for the first time we'd actually taken, well, we have hundreds of learners every year do IT, and very rarely do we ever actually see them do it in a real kind of situation. So that was like the big thing for us to do it. The other thing that was like a real bonus for us was that we actually got time to talk to each other and sit. And I think that Chloe did something recently about sessional tutors being almost in silos and sitting on their own. So we actually spent time to talk about an activity and integrate an activity. So this had English and it had IT and it had workplace learning all together in a meaningful kind of way. And it feels like we talk about doing that stuff a lot, but it takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of thought. So at the end of it, I think I'm nearly out, I don't know whether I'm nearly out of time or not. That was the biggest thing that we got from it. But also, we've taken what we did, we wrote the report, we sent it off to our head of service and all of those important people and fed it back. And a bit like lots of people, unless you stick it under their nose, they don't actually know that these things are going on. So we put it under the nose, and the general feeling was that action research is the best CPD that you can do. So next year, can we have wider and get more people doing action research, which was great. But also there was an acknowledgement that we need to look at our initial assessments. And just because you say that you've got one doesn't mean that it's actually useful and any good. And more time needs to be spent to actually talk to learners to find out really what their starting point was. So if I link back to the last presentation, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the lady who gave the presentation. What you said was, don't just do activities for the sake of it, which I thought was like a really strong statement. And I think that if there was like the number one thing that we got from this was that we need to work harder to shape curriculum around learners rather than shaping learners around qualifications. The end.
Thank you so much, Gary. Goodness me, 2 minutes to spare, if you believe it. I was just writing in chat, and I'm just going to say it out loud because there's no point because I started writing. I really appreciated how you changed tack. That really was, to me, like, that just envisaged what action research is about. Like, you had this idea and you completely changed tack when you realised that those assumptions were going on. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of you for doing that and keeping to time, working together as the fantastic team that you are. So can we give lots of appreciation for Gary and Carol. Thank you very much. And stop sharing screen for a minute, Gary.
Yeah.
If you can find that button, please.
I'm preparing to go to, I'm just in my calendar putting in when the revolution's going to start. You know that. I'm working.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, thank you. Just copy the link. There we are. Okay, thank you very much. Well, we've got 1 more minute, and I just want to, one more time, can we have a bit of appreciation for everybody that is presented? So thank you, Susie and Laurie and David, who, there you are, Carol and Gary, and of course, Kate. And obviously all the teams that have been working together. Thank you so much. We've got 1 more minute. I'm just going to delete that and pop the link in for the next room. Obviously, go and have a little look at the Wakelet as well. You've got your Menti on there to keep reflecting. But thank you very much for supporting everyone and everyone who presented.